right, let's talk about go with the flow, okay? So some people seem to have more momentum in life than other people, right? Things seem to go really well for them and maybe not so much for you. And oftentimes I have coaching clients that will come and begin to work with me and say, Michelle, I don't understand how come it comes so easy for other people and not for me. Well, one thing I've noticed is that the people who tend to be a little more successful in life know about certain principles, okay? There's certain principles that will guide your success regardless of who you are, okay? So it's a law is a law no matter what. Think of the law of gravity, right? The law of gravity is not a respecter of persons. It doesn't say, oh, you're a good person if you jump off your garage. Because you're a good person, you won't get hurt. No, it kind of says, hey, you didn't follow the law. Here you go. Here's your cause and effect. Okay. So a law can work for you no matter who you are. So one of those laws that I teach my clients is about the law of rhythm. So the law of rhythm basically says, that there's natural ups and downs, right? Think about that. We see it in nature all the time. There's 4 seasons. Well, depending on what area of the world you live in, but generally there are different seasons. Here, where I live in mid-Michigan, we, in the United States, we tend to talk about, we have a lot of seasons. So we have different winters. There's early winter, there's, normal winter, then there's, oh my gosh, it's still winter. And then we have this very little time of spring. And then right immediately following that, we have construction season, right? Otherwise known as summer. So depending on where you live, you have different seasons, right? But there's also the farming cycle, right? There's a time to sow and a time to reap. There's day and night. If you really pay attention, you'll notice that there's certain ups and downs, right? We can apply this principle to our thought life as well. One of the things that I think is really cool, especially for those of you who are listening to the podcast, go use our search option and look up law of rhythm. Yes, use spell check to figure out how to spell rhythm. I always have to do that myself. Look up the law of the rhythm and you're going to see the other times that I've taught on this law. But I'm going to share a little bit of a different tweak today. So when we're applying this to our thought life, that's what really successful people do. For example, if you are in a low, so if you're feeling ill or injured, or you have a certain challenge or problem or situation that has kind of popped up in your world, right? You're in a low point. Gosh, what do? Well, when you're in a low, there's a couple things to think about. Number one is that's the time that you need to rest, or you need to recover, or perhaps you need to pause and collect some data, right? Maybe things have been going gung-ho for a while, and then all of a sudden it starts to fall apart, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, let me back up a little. I can tell you this from my personal experience right now. I'm kind of in a low. It's not a low, but things have been going gangbusters for a while in a lot of different areas of my life. And I've noticed in the past several days, especially since I've come back from vacation, like, ooh, there's something off here. And as I'm trying to figure it out, I'm trying to go with the flow instead of fight that resistance. So when you fight the resistance, so for example, when I woke up this morning and I had a lot of emotions and I was like, what is this about? Now I didn't really figure out what it was about, but I did look at it and I said, okay, this is how it is right now. What do I want to do with it? And the very next thing I thought of was I want to spend some time in study. I want to spend some time in reflection. I reached out to a friend to have a conversation. I went for a walk. I'm honoring the low, because when you honor the low, all of a sudden, instead of fighting it, you start to come out of that quicker than if you would have fought it. Okay? So, when you're in a high point, let's face it, everything seems to be going better, right? When everything's going well in your life, work doesn't seem like work. It's easy to make decisions. It's almost like you do no work at all, and all of a sudden, money comes your way, okay? Relationships are really great. You're in a high point, right? Well, what we really want to do, number one, is honor that high. So make decisions left and right. Don't make decisions in a low. But when you're on a high, that's when you want to make decisions, okay? You tend to look at things from a little bit more objective of a standpoint. So think of it, you're on a mountain and you literally can see more things than you could ever see before. That's when you make decisions. When you honor this natural cycle in your life, you will start to see success. You will start to see your high and low, instead of being like really high and really low and dropping, you will see it kind of normalize over time and flatten out. So you'll still have highs, you'll still have lows, but they won't be devastating lows, okay? I don't know, I think sometimes when you honor this, the highs are really sweet, okay? So how can you increase this in your life? Because being on a high, that's where momentum comes in, okay? So when we say go with the flow, but when you're on a high and you're in momentum, you want to take advantage of that, right? Because momentum is a leader's best friend. That's where you can get a lot of work done. You can make a lot of influence in a short amount of time, okay? So there's 3 things I want to tell you about, kind of tips on how to make sure you're staying in that high of a motivation zone, okay? So the first thing is about passion. What gives you passion? What do you love to do? What gives you energy? What fills you up? So for example, this morning when I realized I was in kind of a low, all of those things that I told you I did, guess what? They all fill me up. Okay, now they might not fill you up, and that's just fine. Maybe you're an extrovert and you're like, oh man, I gotta go and talk to somebody, or I gotta, go do something active. Hey, do what fills you up, right? What is your passion? And if you can get to this place in your life where you're including your passions on a not only a normal everyday occurrence, but as much as you possibly can throughout your whole day, you're going to remain on a high a whole lot longer than if you didn't. So for those of you who are working maybe a 9-to-5 job that you just don't like, you hate, right? And you're living for the nights and the weekends when you can do what you really want to do. Gosh, why don't you switch that around a little bit? Okay? Why don't you try to figure out how to design your life so that you can have passion, so that you can not only, work the hours that you want to work, but also do the things that give you joy and energy. Be on the high doing something that you love, as opposed to, trying to hopefully get it on the nights and the weekends. Okay? Another way to stay in the area of momentum and on that high is the flip side of the first one, to remove your demotivators. Think through your life. Are there people, circumstances, conditions, events, ideas? What demotivates you? So I'll give you one that demotivates me. Anytime I'm on, let's say, social media of any kind, and I see a post, first of all, I know everybody has different ways of believing about things. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't have a problem with what you believe. I really don't. I might not agree with you, but that's not a big deal to me. I really have a problem when somebody is putting a post out there that is attacking a person for something they believe in. That person could believe the same thing I believe, or could believe something totally different than I believe. But if they're being attacked for what they believe, that is a demotivator for me. And that's the surest sign for being unfriended. FYI, little tip. Okay, I can't stand that kind of an energy. Now, if you want to get on and say, oh, I totally get that that's how you feel, this is what I believe, great, go for it. Okay? So I also have looked at over the years, it's kind of an iterative process. You do it repetitively. What clients or what organizations do I work that bring me energy that I love to work with, and which ones don't, right? And I try to remove them, because see, what happens is if you keep those demotivating factors in your life, they pull you down into that low. They help you lose momentum. Okay? just try to, at first, try to identify those things, and then you can begin to kind of change them, okay? And then, the third thing is an attitude check. One way to really understand if a task is motivating or not is to do a check, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. How much energy does this give me? What's my attitude when I'm done? So not during, because during is not always a good indicator. But let's say I just had a phone call with somebody, and I take a few minutes and I just go, okay, how do I feel? What's my attitude like right now? I've had phone conversations with people that I dearly love, that I'm related to, or I've been friends with for a long time. I love them as people, and I get off the phone call and I go, oh, I feel kind of yucky. Okay? Now, that's a sign for me that I need to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I feel? If it's below an 8, I have to evaluate. Okay, is it this person or is it this conversation? Right? Maybe the person, I love them dearly, and for whatever reason we just had a weird kind of connection, and so I'll be aware of that the next time I'm on a conversation with them. But if I'm not checking in on that, the next time we have that conversation, I might feel yucky again. And I might repeat it over and over and over again. And if I'm not consciously aware of what's happening, it's going to bring me down into the low, okay? And the low is not a bad place to be, but it's not the place where you learn, grow, or become successful, okay? It's the place where you kind of hold. It's a holding pattern. You catch your breath. It's needed, okay? But you really want to be on the high and where the momentum is, okay? So think about those things for you. What's your passion? What are your demotivators? How do you feel after you've had a conversation or been a part of an event? And I hope that those are going to really add value to you, and help you go from, this really high highs, really low lows, and kind of jagged to this almost flat line where life is calm and steady and more successful. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I hope this is helpful. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you about this, okay? And with that, I release you in the wild. Go forth and prosper. Have an amazing day, and we'll catch you next time. All right. Bye-bye.